The pipes hissed quietly as water rushed through them, but the rest of the house was silent, too silent. Samir, a middle-aged plumber with hands roughened from years of work, wiped the sweat off his brow and listened again. He had been in enough homes to know that silence could sometimes feel heavy, as though it was holding its breath. In a house where a baby lived, it was almost unnatural. That's when he put down his wrench, looked toward the young woman watching him from the kitchen doorway, and asked gently, "Where's the baby's father?" The woman froze, her hands gripping the edge of the counter. Her name was Aisha. She was barely in her 20s, with tired eyes and a kind of hollow sadness that no one her age should carry. She hesitated before answering, her lips trembling. "He's gone." Her voice was barely a whisper. Samir didn't push further, but something in her tone told him this was not the story of a man who had simply walked out, it was something heavier. Samir had been called to fix a leaking pipe under the kitchen sink, but now, standing in the dimly lit room, he realized there was more broken here than just plumbing. As he worked, he heard soft cooing from the next room. He peeked in and saw a baby girl lying in a crib, her tiny chest rising and falling in sleep. Beside the crib was a pile of unopened letters and unpaid bills. The sight pricked at something deep in him. Over the next hour, Aisha slowly began to talk. Her husband, Imran, had been a kind man, full of dreams. But 2 months ago, on his way home from work, a speeding truck had hit his motorcycle. The doctors tried, but he didn't make it. Since then, Aisha had been drowning, trying to be both mother and father while dealing with grief and crushing financial strain. She'd sold her jewelry to pay rent. Food was sometimes just bread and tea. Even the plumbing bill had been something she dreaded, but the leak had become too bad to ignore. Samir's chest tightened as he listened. He knew loss. He had buried his own wife years ago, raising 2 kids alone. He knew what it felt like to wake up every day and wonder how you'd make it to the next. When he finished the repair, Aisha reached for her wallet, but he waved her off. "No," he said firmly. "You need this money more than I do." She shook her head, embarrassed, but her eyes glistened with unshed tears. The next day, Samir couldn't get Aisha and the baby out of his mind. He spoke to his daughter, now grown and married, and together they decided to do something. They gathered baby clothes, formula, diapers, and some groceries. Samir went back to the house, telling Aisha it was just a follow-up visit to check the pipes. When she saw the bags, she broke down completely, her hands covering her face as sobs shook her body. Word spread quietly among the neighborhood. People who had never spoken to Aisha before began showing up, one with a bag of rice, another with a blanket, another offering to watch the baby so she could rest. Slowly, she began to smile again. She found small sewing jobs she could do from home, and neighbors gave her steady orders to keep her going. Months later, Samir passed by the same street and saw Aisha outside, holding her baby who was now giggling in the sunlight. She waved to him, her face brighter than he'd ever seen. "You didn't just fix my pipes," she told him. "You fixed my hope." Samir smiled and simply said, "Sometimes, all a leak needs is someone willing to stop the water from escaping." He walked away with a warmth in his heart, knowing that kindness, even the smallest kind, could change the course of someone's life. In the end, Aisha's story became a quiet reminder to everyone around her: tragedy can break you, but love, whether from family, friends, or even a stranger, can rebuild you, piece by piece, until you're whole again.